John chapter 19, verse 26 to 27. When Jesus saw his mother standing there with the disciple whom he loved beside her, he said to his mother, "Woman, this is your son." And he said to the disciple, "This is your mother." And from that day, the disciple took Jesus' mother into their home to live with them. Today, we reflect upon relationship. We reflect upon the church. We reflect upon community and from where community comes from. When Jesus was reflecting, when we reflect on what Jesus was going through, he was on a cross, he was dying. This was a horrific, destructive process that was happening. This was not pleasant, this was not kind. And yet out of that experience, Jesus still has time for community, for relationship. Out of that horrific time on the cross, God's creative work is still at play. So much had seemed fractured, so much had seemed lost. Jesus' disciples had thought that Jesus was there to create a new community, a new kingdom on earth, and build a new nation, restore Israel's fortunes, to relieve the oppression of Rome. And here we have Rome looking like Rome was succeeding in destroying that vision, that dream. That here we had fractured relationships. The disciples had dispersed. There weren't much around. Everyone had gone, including Peter. Faithful Peter, nowhere to be seen. Who was left? Mary, the mother of Jesus. Mary, called Mary Magdalene. And John. We think it was John, the disciple whom Jesus loved. And here we have Jesus still at work, building, creating, restoring. See, Rome was never going to win in the end. On that cross, even in the midst of all that is hurt and broken, Jesus turns round and says to his mother, "Woman," gyne. In our English years in the 21st century, just fast forwarded 100 years, in the 21st century, we sometimes hear that word in English as being a bit brash, woman. And it can sound misogynistic and patriarchal sometimes when we use it in that way nowadays. But the Bible wasn't written in English. And the word that's used can kind of mean life giver, birther, woman. In this sense, is also used at other times, not as a point of derision, but as an affirming word to say mother, life giver. This is your son now. You saw me as your son. Now see him as your son. Start this new family, this new community. And to the disciple, this is your mother. Take this widow and care for her. Take this person who gave me life and continue in community so that more life may be given for all. This was the start of building a new community. Even from the cross, Jesus is building the church, a community of faith, a community of relationship, a community of love. In the midst of despair, sometimes everything can feel broken, but yet still, like when we reflect upon today you will be with me in paradise, we see Jesus to the other criminal on that cross affirming relationship, that in the midst of uncertainty, I am with you. In the midst of despair and brokenness and hurt and sin, when we have turned our back on God, Jesus is there. God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Restoring relationships, turning things around. And here, building relationship. Woman, this is your son. And to the disciple, this is your mother. The words of Jesus, once again, creatively building church, building community, building faith in relationship. It's not about certainties. It's not about trying to say, oh, don't worry, it's all fine. No false platitudes. That's not what we're in the business of doing. We don't ignore the suffering, but we turn it around. We build. We grow. Not just for ourselves, but for others. Looking toward to God's kingdom. Looking toward for God's reign, God's power, God's glory, so that we can establish new ways of being in this world today. So as part of our Lenten journey, we reflect again upon the words of Jesus on that cross. Think about community. In what ways are we building community today? In what ways are we looking after those around us? In what ways are we looking for those that are broken-hearted, that are bereaved? And in what ways are we giving hope to those who grieve? In what ways are we rebuilding community and relationship? Let's reflect upon that as we journey through Lent toward the cross.